record. And welcome to the webinar today. I'm Catherine Bird. Today the webinar is called It's Different When You Get There because this is a conversation that actually I was having with Michelle Christine about the reality of spiritual development and healing work and this journey and path that we take as we go along, and how so often where we think we're going with ourselves is absolutely not where we end up in any kind of way at all. And there's so many surprises and interesting things that happen on this journey. So we're going to get into this. My name is Catherine Bird, and you probably know who I am if you've been watching the masterclass series or if you've been following my work. If you don't, then I am a healer. I do shamanic work and coaching work, mentorship. Mostly my work now is in training and supporting channels, psychics, mystics, shamans, healers, coaches, all of the people on the path who are not only working on their own process and their progress and changing and shifting their own internal reality, but also in that deep inquiry and question on what is that translation point between me and my own transformation and integrated living, and then also how am I translating that out into the world, into my realm of service. So I'm super excited to have here today, and I'm going to put Michelle on to the gallery view here so we can both be seen. And I am super excited because my original intention was to have a webinar, a live webinar at the end of this masterclass series, and sort of talk about the realities around channeling work and the path that we take and our pitfalls and where we sort of shoot ourselves in the foot and all of these different pieces. And then I had this great idea because I've gotten kind of sick of the whole like webinar thing, and maybe you guys have too, where I don't know how many webinars maybe you've been a part of, where I know that I've been on a lot of webinars in the last, year or so, where I'm listening to the webinar. I know exactly what they're going to say next. I even know what their next slide is going to look like, because I'm like, I've done that training. I know what that webinar looks like. So I'm done. I'm over it right now. And I just really wanted to have a real, authentic conversation with somebody who has worked with me for quite a while, who's been through most of my programs, who has gone through this process of kind of going from like dealing with trauma and like my past and everything that's there, and being inspired to support and help other people, but then going through this huge process of self-healing and transformation, tons of initiations, and learning how to integrate all of these spiritual gifts and energetic gifts and translate those into a thriving and functioning business and life. So I want to welcome Michelle Christine, and Michelle Christine is a relationship, sexuality coach, healer, facilitator. She is a channel. She's incredibly connected to the Angelic Realms, and also works with Mother Mary a lot and Mary Magdalene. And this, her business is called Sacred Rose, and she supports mostly women, but also couples and men in really understanding themselves in getting past the trauma point of like engaging with life from that place of trauma and finding this new paradigm of relationship and connection to self and to others and to sexuality from a place of a sacredness. And so I just really appreciate Michelle's work. And so I'm super happy to have her here. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, thank you so much.
So I want to have this conversation with you because I think it's really important for people to see and understand that, sometimes we see people and we're like, oh, they're so amazing and they just have all their shit together and look at what they can do. And then we look at ourselves and we're like, I'm still like unsure, or I'm still doubt. I still struggle. I still am like trying to figure this thing out and it feels kind of clunky or overwhelming or whatever. And so I wanted to have this conversation because I feel like you kind of have lived that. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I know you've seen me through so much of that. I was thinking back to when we first met, and it's like 5 years ago, I think. And yeah, just really, you've been with me through it all. So thank you.
So tell us a little bit more about I gave you a nice introduction, but tell us a little bit more about you, and about some of the work that you're doing, where you feel like you're at right now.
Yeah, of course. So I honestly feel like my work is going through a bit of a shift right now, a bit of an evolution. I have been someone whose work has really mirrored my own path and there's not much difference between my personal life and my work. So I was really engaged in healing women's sexual trauma, and that's still so close to my heart. But with my own journey, I realized that once we have really come into that place of wholeness, it's important to be prepared for what's next, right? So what are our relationships going to look like from that place of wholeness and healing, and how to navigate that? How is sexuality going to look like from that place? And really kind of moving past the old paradigm of even looking at relationships as a place to heal. Like, I know that has served us so much, so many of us. We've learned amazing lessons there, but I just have been tapping into something beyond that, so being in relationships that are where there's just like this mutual support for one another, kind of looking forward and lifting each other up, helping us really like from this place of profound love and deep care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And realizing that, anchoring that within us, within the relationship field, just kind of goes out into the world, and that frequency just elevates the collective. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you've had this journey of, there's a lot of people on here. I'm looking at my list and it's like, well, yeah, we're healers and we're facilitators and we're on our own personal healing journey. And, that willingness to allow, the work to evolve within you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been this process of surrendering, right? And I think when we do open our channel and we are connected to that divine guidance, I feel like there's this commitment to listen, right? Even when it feels scary, because honestly, I feel like I just got anchored into the other purpose. And part of me is like, really, it's shifting already? And really just having the courage and the strength to follow that guidance, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What was it that inspired you on this idea of channeling and kind of going in this more spiritual direction? Because I know when I met you, you were doing coaching work that was sort of centered around, like manifesting relationship and kind of coming from that space of like, love coaching, right? Of how do you find a relationship that fits? And it felt very, very real world. It was very like, 3D normal, like, okay, let's just figure out how to have a functioning relationship.
Yeah. Well, I think I felt very comfortable there. And I feel as I've just gone deeper and deeper into myself and who I am and my journey as a soul, I've always been this. I feel like I've always had these mystical experiences, but didn't really have a name for them and kind of kept them to myself because I didn't really want to, be seen as different or crazy or not belonging. All those old stories we tell ourselves, right? And when I met you, I remember I just saw you and I was like, I have to work with that woman. Like, I knew nothing about you. I didn't even know what kind of work you did. And I was like at home Googling you. I was like, I'm just going to email her. And I did. And I felt even before that, I remember setting an intention to step into more of my magic. So I feel like that intention really led me to you and just really coming more of who I am. And I feel so much more comfortable here than ever.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to chat in, if like you relate to that reality of being like, oh my gosh, could I possibly be this, odd, or could this really be happening to me? And what was it like when you started, like when you first started to open to that and be like, oh wow, this is, because I think that there's that realization that we have that this isn't going to just be this thing that I have over here in this little like hidden bucket of my life. It's like you start to realize the impact.
Yeah. And I think also you start to realize that it's only going to get more. Like the more you say yes, the more you step into this, the more you embody your divinity. It's just more and more and more. And I feel also it's been way easier too, because I feel like then your purpose is really just who you are, right? Like just, yeah, and that feels way easier than having to do something or have this label, but it's really your purpose is being the most authentic version of yourself. And I feel like when you open your channel, that's when you really, in a way, get to know who you are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've been thinking about this, and what has been coming through so strongly is that, I did this too. I remember looking at you and be like, Kat's an amazing channel. And when we would be in session and you would channel for me, I'd be like, I love this so much. And also, there's a point, I feel, the deeper you go into this work, where you realize that you start to trust your own guidance above all else. So you really start to trust what's coming through you. And you also really start to understand how nothing's outside of us. All the wisdom, all the answers, it's all within us. And that makes me feel so hopeful and excited.
Oh my gosh, me too. And it's so funny that you're saying this, because as I've been sitting with the message of this webinar, it's like the exact same thing as what's been coming through is that is that we so often are thinking, and I was just writing this yesterday, I think you guys will see it in an email in a few days. So that we so often are thinking that opening our channel or connecting to spiritual information in some kind of way is like, we come at it at first with this idea that something outside of us is going to give us the information that we need, or somehow like save us from, our own bad decision making, or give us like access to something that's going to come at us from outside that is going, to somehow make our life easier in some kind of way. But the further that we go along the path, the more that we get into this space of being able to tune into ourselves in such a deep way that like you're saying, that in a way nothing is outside of us, and we're so connected to that stream of light and information and guidance that we are realizing our own divinity and our own power and our own ability to have access to so much information. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I'm curious, like, so you could kind of like speaking to the benefits of this, like, and tuning in. I know that your work has changed a lot, and yeah. So what was unexpected as you, because I know that you're really connected to the angelic realms and so on, and then you're working in the realms of sexuality. Like what was some stuff that came up that was sort of unexpected on this?
Well, I think for one, the connection between the angelic realm and sexuality. I know we've talked about that, but it seemed like they would just show up in my sessions with people. And I was like, okay, I guess we're doing this. So one of the unexpected things was the trust I developed in myself. Yeah, for sure. I feel like that's the number one thing. Even going through Open Your Channel, I mean, it was just really starting to trust the information, trust that the angels were here, trust that Mother Mary was here, whatever frequency I was feeling, to really, really, really trust that. And another thing I feel that I've been thinking about was the development of relationships, right, with these frequencies, with these beings, with these angels, how it really is a relationship. So it's trusting ourselves, but also trusting our relationship, trusting they're going to be there when we invoke them, trusting when we have a question, we're going to feel them with us, right? So it's not like, again, it's not like we're like reaching up to the sky. It's like, okay, like Archangel Michael, need help, he's right here.
Right. And I think that this is, this is something that I talk about a lot, is this process of relationship building and how you go about the process of building relationships with the energies that you're already connected to. Because it's not like Michelle showed up, and Michelle did Open Your Channel course. She did the retreat. She did the year-long channeling program that I run, where we work with different beings every month. And it wasn't like, okay, Michelle, here, start invoking angels because I'm like giving you an assignment out of a hat. It was like, no, these are the frequencies that Michelle is already connected to and has always been connected to. And these are the energies that are showing up for her, and then starting to sort out what those are, and then develop those relationships and do the practices and the meditations and the doing the things to create those relationships, right? And then they just started showing up all the time. And then it started to change the way that you were even working with people.
Oh, absolutely. Because it took trust and faith to start to bring the messages through, right? When they appeared, if someone's, doing a jade egg practice, and then there's, Archangel Michael shows up for like a throat clearing or something. It took me a lot of courage to just trust that, and also to kind of gauge where the client is, right? So I feel like it's also really important, something that I didn't always do, but I do now, is really to ask the other person's consent. Like, a message is coming through, would you like to receive it? Or, Archangel Michael's here, and he's showing me that there may be something, in your throat. Does that resonate with you? So really starting to have them be involved. And what I found with doing that is that sometimes I would even just say, kind of the light energy or something that was coming through, and my client would say, you know what, I feel Mother Mary right next to me. And I'd be like, yes.
Right. It's great when you start to get the confirmation, right? When someone else can confirm what you're experiencing, then you're like, oh, okay, sure. All right. That's great. But it does, as you're saying, it takes courage. It really takes courage. And I just want to, in one way, like honor every single person who's on this call, in that it takes courage just to show up for something like this. And it takes courage to allow yourself to receive, and then to be open to taking action and to talking about it and to kind of outing yourself in this experience. Because like Michelle's saying, and I know that you've come up against this, I've come up against this. I mean, it's been a while, but I know that I so struggled at the beginning. When I had my spiritual awakening, I was channeling all kinds of stuff. It was very chaotic. It was very hard to control. I didn't know anything. I had no mentorship at first. I struggled a lot because I didn't want anyone to see this. When I was channeling, it was kind of gross and ugly. It was a lot of incorporation. It was very physical. There was like my weird faces and all of this stuff. And it was a little, really intense sometimes. And I was so afraid because it would happen unexpectedly too. And I was so afraid of people seeing it because I was ashamed of it. I felt like it was too weird and too out there, and that in a way I had this story that no one could possibly love something that was this odd. There was nobody could possibly, like, if anybody saw this, then they would absolutely reject me, maybe murder me right there on the spot. Like, right. And I know, Michelle, you live in, Michelle does not live in, the West Coast, San Diego, like super spiritual community. And you come from a pretty conservative background and family and religious upbringing. And how did those like grind against each other when you first started to open up?
Oh my goodness. So I feel there's a lot of conditioning I had to move through, and a lot of fear of being seen, which I still feel that. You know that. I still feel that.
That's one of the reasons Michelle's here, is because I'm like, we gotta just like, whatever the next level of fear, we're gonna just like wring that out in this moment.
And it's actually, it's not as great as I thought. So I mean, that was, again, I feel like it's the courage, but then I also feel really strongly that the more you connect with these different frequencies and these different energies, the more it raises your vibration. And then a bit like it feels, I don't know if easier is the right word, but it feels more integrated, more whole, just part of who you are. Like, it's not, and I feel this from working with you, like, it's not like I'm out there, like I'm a channel. It's like I'm Michelle, and and I'm very connected to these energies, and they move through me. But at this point, I don't even really differentiate it that much from who I just am in my everyday life. And I can relate to that because before, especially in my intimate relationships, I would hide this. And I would try to be so normal and it's funny because even though I was trying, I don't think I was doing a very good job about it. But then there was that feeling of, if we don't let someone see this part of us, we can never have that intimacy, right? Like, this is just a part of who we are. And even getting back to that realization that this is natural. Like, it's not that, I mean, yes, we all have our gifts, but I truly feel that this is a natural way of being human that we're just not tapped into. Right. And that more and more of us are tapping into, because it's just time to bring this through. But I feel like it's a normal way of being.
Yeah. And I think that that's a really important piece, is that is that we can get lost in those self-judgments, and we can get lost in the fear of rejection or the fear of, being too different or whatever. And instead of, in some ways, being willing to step into that role of leadership, that this is human, that we are just being human, and we're being human by being connected to the divine, and by being connected to nature, by being connected to everything. Yesterday I was recording new meditations and teachings for this year's Open Your Channel Practice community. So sorry, Michelle, you're not getting these ones. Maybe I'll send them to you just for fun. But it was on connecting to nature spirits and connecting to really that realization that everything is spiritual. Yeah. And everything has a spirit, and everything can be connected to, and everything can communicate with us.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
But it takes that deep listening, and beyond the deep listening, it takes kind of working through, like you're saying, all of those, beliefs that are holding us back. And then from what I see, a lot of working through our energy and working to release and let go of the things energetically that are sort of keeping us at a lower level functioning frequency, and then incorporating what's going to bring us to that higher level, so that as we're connecting, we're coming from a place, right, that where we're coming from is where we're going, and that we're coming from a place where we're connecting not out of fear or shame or like this needy lack experience of life, but we're coming from a place where we're actually able to collaborate in our connection with the spiritual realms.
Yeah.
and that's what excites me. That's what excites me. That's what excites me about this work, is that we get to through these connections and through our development of these connections and our development of ourselves, like you said, we get to know ourselves and trust ourselves in this way that, when we were talking about, okay, well, what is it that the essence of this is, that you don't know where you're going to be. Like it's different when you get there, because for me, there was so much questioning for so long, and there was so much unknown, and there was so much fear and doubt and shame and being in a space of like, well, but is this real? And if it is real, what does it mean? And what does it mean about me? And trying to sort out how it fit into my life and how it fit into my work, and then hiding for a really long time and not letting it be integrated into myself. Like, I think that the period of time that I spent where I was really hiding what was coming through and shutting it down and turning it off and not letting myself be authentic, I think that was some of the most, I don't know, it's like emotionally and even physically painful period of time where I was like, oh, it's so uncomfortable inside of myself, trying not to, it's so funny because everybody's like, be authentic, be yourself. And it was like, no, please, can I just please not be that? Can I be something else entirely? And that was so uncomfortable.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah.
So tell me about, because I can speak for myself, but what's that experience of like when you move? Because it's like, okay, there's sort of that experience for a lot of us where I know for me, I was shut down for a really long time. I was medicated. I was distracted. I was not on the spiritual path. And then I got these visions and I got these messages and I changed everything. And it was like, okay, well, I opened, but then there was this period of time, years, where I was hiding and trying to sort out what was happening and trying to understand how to manage myself and my energy and all of these things. And then the transformation and the transition of becoming more seen and becoming more authentic in myself. And just like you said, I'm just Michelle. Well, I'm Kat. Like, this is part of my deal, part of the thing. And like, what's that sensation of the transition to now? Like, how does it feel inside of your inside?
Yeah, it's interesting because I have to say, even before I met you, I did go through this stage where I felt very like, now I look at it, maybe it was like spiritual bypassing. Like, I felt like I was very like happy and very love and light and everything was great and like uber positive and up here, but not in my body. And I looked back on that time with some fondness because it was actually felt good to be that way.
It feels so good to be out of body and totally bypassed.
And then I just completely disconnected from everything because I realized part of my journey was it was so painful for me to be in my body, not only because I was trying to disconnect from this, but I had repressed all this trauma in there. And for me to go deeper within meant that I needed to look at that. And I have to be honest, it wasn't until I went deeper in my body that things really started to open up for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In a totally different way, because then it was also about, learning to love every part. So even the parts that feel scared to be this, right? Or the parts that feel like if we are this, we're not going to belong, or, it's like having so much love and compassion. I mean, the world is changing, but still it's not so easy all the time to be this in this world that we live in. So it's really holding those parts with so much tenderness. And I feel like doing that, you're not fighting against them. You're bringing them in closer, letting them know it's actually going to be okay. And, more, so you're coming more from a place of integration and wholeness.
Yeah.
And just really feeling that we are divinity in a human body, but it's like anchored in us.
Yeah. And for me, I feel like, and I was having a conversation with my friend Vanessa, who's also a channel. She's a galactic channel, just the other day. And that we were talking about this concept of like, when you get there, it's not where she's like, oh my gosh, yes. And we were talking about how you think that you're going to end up more like almost like you said, this like high, like spiritual, like sort of super happy, bypassed sort of, disembodied thing. But that when you have actually integrated, you become more human through this process. Yeah. And I think that is one of the most shocking pieces. And I know for me, like I went through a period of time where I was really a bit out there, but that over time, as I've become more and more integrated in this work, is that I've become more human and I feel much more free because there's a level of mastery that sits within all of this, that I'm free to be that easefully and without it being such a drain on my system, and without it being so hard, and without all of the baggage, So I feel like there's this enormous amount of like freedom and also enhanced humanity that I experience that I never could have experienced before if I hadn't gone through this process.
Yeah. It's so funny because I actually wrote that in my notes, that it makes you become more human in this. So I love that you said that, because I feel like that's an unexpected outcome for sure, you know?
Right. Yeah. And I know that it's a lot of times for those that have these tendencies or, these different, spiritual or energetic awareness or gifts or really intense, empath experiences, that being human can feel like a burden, or it can feel like, oh my gosh, really? It's so challenging. And so I think our tendency is to almost like run away from it. And that there's a big piece on learning how to integrate all of this together.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Michelle. That's I find this super helpful. If anybody else is finding this super helpful, please chat it in. We're going to drop in a second just to kind of like, see if there's anything that's present that wants to be brought through, or if anybody has any questions that they want to chat in or anything like that, please do. And, I just want to invite everybody that if this is resonating with you, if this is something that you're interested in learning how to go through this process of mastery, to finding your unique expression inside of this, of what it is for you that is this connection to the spiritual realms, and to get into a level of consistent practice on this, and to uncover what's there for you through opening and becoming this and mastering it, and learning the different tools, both energetically, physically, spiritually, that I just want to create an invitation and an offer for you guys to tune into the Open Your Channel program, which is going to begin on February 9th. And we're going to, it's a really amazing program, and I've fleshed it out. I've fleshed it out a lot since Michelle took it, because I've added a lot more materials on recorded teachings, on meditations, energy practices, using Taoist energy practices. So it's stuff that's going to keep you in your body, but then also open you up and open up the third eye and connect to the heart and all of these pieces. And there's workbooks. So going into deep inquiry on what this work means to you and what you're going to develop yourself as in this work. And also then, with each module, there's 4 modules. With each module, we're also going to be having live calls where I'm going to be doing a live teaching that is like relevant for the group and where we're at, and also working with our consciousness, working with shifting our internal belief structures around all of this, and then also working with how we're engaging with this so that we can be of a really highly beneficial presence to the world. And so that'll be live teachings and live practice sessions. So live going into meditation together and working on building our awareness muscles and our intuitive muscles. And then questions. So you get to ask whatever questions that you want to ask, and be in presence of receiving answers for those questions, and working on what your experiences are and sorting out what you're experiencing And what else? There's so many other things. And then there's the retreat. We're going to have an amazing retreat, and it's optional at the beginning of April to come to New Mexico and have a 3-day retreat. And Michelle Hawk, who's also an amazing channel, is going to, which I think the two Michelles roomed together in Glastonbury this year when they went to have initiations there. So Michelle Hawk is going to come and help with with the retreat. And we're going to practice 9 forms of channeling and mediumship. So it's like stretches you to do the things that you wouldn't normally do, and to step into the areas that are like, okay, can I do this thing? And then isn't it amazing when you realize, oh, I can do that too.
Yeah. And I think like there's also, it's like have fun with it, right? Like it can be light and joyful and fun. And I do feel like doing those programs with you, especially the practice community, and just practicing was so helpful. So helpful. And not even really worrying what was coming out, but just, getting that flowing within you was really helpful.
Yeah, that is really helpful. And Connie's asking about understanding correct messages and what they mean, and having trouble knowing what they're wanting from me. You ever been there, Michelle?
Well, I think it's also for, to see how your channel works. Like, I know for me, it's a lot of clairsentience that I then have to translate into, and that was always really hard. And now, with your support and having the safe container, it's become really more easier understanding that that's how I work. Yeah, I feel like that was something very helpful that you taught me.
Yeah. And yeah, it does. It's that practice of understanding the way that you're receiving, because each one of us receives so differently, and getting into that practice of understanding the way that you translate. And then depending on the way that you're receiving and depending on what you're getting, then, it can come through and mean different things, and it can feel confusing sometimes. And that's okay.
And that's okay. Yeah.
And, and one of the really important, ask for clarity. Sometimes we get messages and then we're just like confused, and we just sit around confused instead of being like, hey, I don't understand what you're meaning, or I don't get it, or can you give me more information, please? And being available to more information and looking out for that more information as it's going to come through, because then it might come through in a different way, with like a book flying off the shelf when you're at the bookstore, or somebody reaching out to you and being like, you gotta jump on this webinar, or this, go to this thing, or whatever. And so it's not always the way that you think it should be. It's really not. And so it takes that practice of starting to understand the way you receive, and then sorting through what you're getting. And being okay with not knowing, I think, is a really, really big, important piece. Is like, I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know. And then asking for clarity, asking for more information, and being really clear on what you want, I think, is really important, because it doesn't really matter what they want, right? It's like, what do you want, and what do you want support with, and what are you trying to cultivate more of in your life, and being really clear from that place. And then you can receive guidance from that place, right? And then Anna's asking about practices. Well, I mean, there's so many practices. So in the program, we do a lot of practices on clearing, on grounding, on opening the third eye, on connecting to the central channel and working on the central channel. And I recommend daily practice for people, to have some sort of physical, energetic practice, some sort of meditation practice that you're doing on a daily basis. And then it does depend on the form of channeling that you're doing. And it does depend on where you're at energetically, where you're at in your physical health and well-being of what you're doing, and how much channeling you're doing. Because channeling can, depending on the type of channel you are and the beings that you're connected to, it can kind of wear you out sometimes. So it's not necessarily like you need to be channeling every day. doing the supportive practices every day, and then tuning in and doing the channeling work when it's coming through, or when you're in session work, or, for specific, times, is really important. I think that it's so important to build. I know for me, just speaking from my personal experience, I was doing a lot of channeling and I was blowing myself out. It can be very overheating at times. It can push through a lot of things through the system. So it can kind of cause emotions to come up, memories from every time maybe that you've ever lived. Like, it can cause a lot of things to come up and come through. So it takes a lot of self-care to manage this sometimes, and to have the awareness of, I'm doing a practice because I have this reason for doing the practice. Like, this practice is for this reason, and this is why I'm doing it, because this is where I'm at. Not just like, well, I read out of a book that you're supposed to do this, practice to open your third eye, but I'm not actually self-assessing myself as to, like Michelle's saying, I'm not actually in my body. So what I really need is to maybe do that third eye practice, but every day, what I really need is to be outside and doing more physical movement and going deeper within and feeling my physical body and feeling my breath and feeling my sensations. And that work could be the practice that's going to actually take me to the next level, more than even working on the third eye. And I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, people who are like, I really want to open my third eye, they're the people who need to be in their body. And maybe vice versa, I don't know. But yeah, so it's being able to self-assess, or to get that reflection, to be able to understand like where you're at, where you want to go, and then what are the things you need to be doing on a regular basis to get there. And those are going to change also depending on where you're at and what's coming through you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let's just, I'm curious if we have anything that's wanting to be presenced into. So let's just, so shush, shush, shush. Just drop in. Call upon and invoke the presence of our guides and teachers, angels, those beings of love and light, the support to our advancement, evolution, and growth of humanity, and those on this call. Seeking guidance and illumination. An inquiry on spiritual connection and its purpose or its benefit for humanity, on why would we do this? Why would we want to connect in this way? It has been said that this work connects you more to your humanity. This is an important concept to understand. In the connection to the spiritual realms, there's also often a misconception around the reasoning for the connections. This can lead to connecting to energies, to beings, to guides that are not of the highest service for your advancement. Your advancement, and must be remembered, is to be a more loving, compassionate, kind individual as part of a collective whole of humanity working towards your evolution of consciousness as a collective. It is not for your necessarily your own personal gain or your own personal needs to get met, but as a inspiration, as a way of helping others to understand themselves, to understand their connection to the spiritual realms, to understand their ability to be at peace within themselves, at one with the divine, as we all are. When you accept your own connection, your own ability to be in this space of the one, when you accept this fully, as it has been said, to trust it completely, then your presence expands. Your presence expands. Your presence expands so that it becomes a presence which shifts others into presence. This ability to be in presence shifts consciousness. It shifts the awareness that people have of themselves as separate. As people go through this process, which you are all going through at different rates, when this process has gone through, when the separateness has faded and fallen away, then you realize that you are all one. And in that, the expression, the expansion of love, compassion, collaboration, creation expands. You become part of the whole once again. And you feel a sense of peace in your connection with others. Many people feel a sense of great disconnection and an impossibility of peace within themselves because of this experience of intense separation. And there is a longing, a deep, profound longing, which one feels can only be achieved by merging back into the one at death. But it is not so, and it is part of the learning here to incorporate this into everyday life, into living reality, to incorporate these spiritual awareness and spiritual information into your real life, as it has been said, into the physical body, to merge, to integrate into now, to be in that presence, which is a shifting factor, not only for you, but for everyone that you come in contact with. This is one of the primary reasons for this type of work that you're being called into.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm feeling the angels really strongly, and yeah, their message is simple. It's a time when so much is changing, so much. And there's so much spiritual information out there. And they're saying it can be simple. It can be as simple as being still, being quiet, listening. Listening for them everywhere in nature, within ourselves. Not so much seeking answers, seeking presence. And being with this divine presence that they so want to anchor here in humanity at this time. And that we are the vehicles, but it's not separate from us. It's not giving our life over to something else. It's really being more of who we are, being more, allowing more of our divinity to fill our body, and being this in the world, which elevates the entire collective just by our presence. They're saying we do too much. We're even looking at this as something we have to do, and it can be hard. And how do we do it? What are the practices? What do we do? And they're saying that it's being, even with the practices, it's being in the practice, being in the stillness, being in our body, being in this world. And simply by anchoring this light, and when they say light, they really want you to stop and feel this light in your body. How does this light feel in your body? And Archangel Michael is really present, and he's inviting you to invite this light, this blue light, if it feels right, into your body right now. And notice how it feels. What are the sensations you're feeling? Feel it in your cells and in your blood and your bones, like in your human self. Notice what emotions may be coming up, what thoughts. And just breathing this in, really breathing this in. And knowing that, just us here, just doing that has elevated the collective. And have absolute trust in that. And notice, they're saying really notice when you even get off the webinar, what your day is like. Notice the people you come into contact with. Notice how they may react to you, how they're looking at you. Really feeling this in your heart. So looking at this as we're really moving more into being of the heart with our kindness, our love, our compassion. And it's really can be that easy. I mean, it's what the world needs right now, like right in this moment, that we can bring because it's alive within us. Yeah, so they're saying just let that settle, reorganize your field, relax into it, and trust, trust, trust.
And we we are so grateful, always, always, always so grateful, so grateful, so grateful to be able to do this work, to connect, to be connected to our guides and to ourselves, to life itself moving through us. We're so grateful for all that we are and all that we have. And we release Any of you from this space are guides and teachers, angels. And we ask that any and all activations, healings, new awareness, new inspiration continue for all of us in the coming hours and days and weeks ahead to support us in our evolution and growth and for the betterment of beings in all places and all times. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Look at that. We're 1 hour in. Yay.
Hey.
All right, you guys. So I want to keep this short and honor your time and your attention. And I really appreciate you taking this time in the middle of the day. And I want to thank Michelle. Thank you so much for showing up. And if you're interested in tuning in with Michelle, I know she's more active on Instagram than on Facebook. And her website is Divine Rose 444, right?
Sacred Rose.
Sacred Rose, sorry. Sacred Rose 444. I was just thinking of the divine. So Sacred Rose, you just wrote divine. So I think I read divine. So I said it out loud. So Sacred Rose 444. And Michelle's amazing. And if you feel called to reach out to her, please do. And then also, if you feel called to reach out to me, please do. If you have further questions and things like that, I am now in active calling people in for the Open Your Channel course, the course in the retreat. You also have options for doing a VIP. If you purchase within the next 24 hours, you will get an additional one-on-one session with me. I do my sessions online with people. So if you are interested in joining, I would say there's tears streaming down the face. We're so grateful. There's lots of thank yous and amazingness and so much appreciation. So thank you all so much. And if you're interested, jump in now, jump in the next 24 hours. You'll still get early bird pricing until February 4th. You'll get an additional session with me if you jump in the next 24 hours. And if you're like, I just have more questions and I really need to talk to you personally, let me know. And I'm happy to jump on a call with you. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we can chat about what this course looks like if you have any big questions about it. Otherwise, you'll be getting more emails and stuff. I just put the link to sign up in the chat box. So if you just sign up, it's going to be great. And we're just here to learn how to really integrate who we already are and to become more of who we are. And so if you're interested in this path and you're interested in learning and mastering and developing yourself and joining me on this amazing journey, we're going to have so much fun, then please do. Okay. So more questions. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Michelle, and sending lots of love to everybody and many blessings. And I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.
Thank you.